I just wanted to ask you how you feel your role as a creative from the African diaspora. What is your role? What's your mission in terms of history and heritage?
So my role, I think I'm trying. Just trying to show some pieces that are until now are covered. So I try to show to uncover these pieces that to me are important to know, to better understand. I think the world, like little pieces, make it. If we make it, if we put it together, uh, could help us to understand our place in the world, our heritage, and I think, yeah, it sounds a little utopistic, I know, but it's important to me to like to feel better and to feel useful, and yeah, and also for me, for my path as well. It's not just for others, it's also a little egoistic.
Little selfishness in
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Um, we were talking earlier about language and about how Italians are now maybe evolving the language around race. At least in the Netherlands, we spoke earlier about white privilege and white fragility. I personally use them because they've been handed to us to discuss it, but I'm not really comfortable with some of those terms myself. What do you think about it? What's happening in Italy around this subject?
In Italy, around the subject of white privilege and white fragility, it's very like the people don't know what it means, because we are not used to this kind of discussion. We are not used to this kind of terms that put the white in the discutibile, in the um,
Disadvantaged position, like in the
not
spotlight?
disadvantage, yeah, in the spotlight, and we are not used to it, and that's why we are not used to translate these words, because if you use the English terms, it's something that belong to someone else.
Okay. So
So if
how would you explain it to an Italian who doesn't understand these terms?
it's because there is a myth of Italians that are good people. So they, after the colonization, and I think also during the colonization, they were they say Italiani brava gente, Italians good people, and because uh, they did a different type of colonialism. I mean, they say they did a different type of colonialism. They were not like French or England or Belgium. They were not killing people and erase the culture of those populations. And it's not true, actually. It's not true. But they started with this propaganda. So there is this imaginary of Italian people as good people that went to Africa to support the civilization, to like maybe make friends, a new friendship relation with these black people that don't know anything. So they were there um, to improve
Their
their
conditions.
situation, yeah,
Mm.
their conditions. And I think that this propaganda worked very well, because now they still think the same. Also about colonialism, they don't know anything. We don't know anything. At school, we are not taught about Italian colonies. We know about something about UK, something about France, France. Something really, really shortly we study about Belgium, but about Italy, it's just, yeah, we went there in East Africa, then in Libya, and yeah, we tried with Ethiopia, but we didn't went very well, so we lost everything, and that's it. No, it's not like that. So I think that the colonialist heritage still in the mentality of young Italians, because also us, it's just not white people. People that study in Italy has this point of view, because our books are telling this story, this narrative. So it's different to overcome this approach.
And if a viewer is white and Italian and doesn't understand what is white privilege, what is white fragility, if you were to explain to them, how would you explain to them what it is?
Okay,
Like maybe an example helps people, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have uh, all the. I mean, the meaning of white privilege is very complex, and I'm not sure now I'm able to explain to someone the whole thing, but in the everyday life I saw it, and I saw how white people, even if they have difficulties, because it doesn't mean that they are a good life. Every white people has a good life. It doesn't mean at all that. But in the same situation, black people and white people, the white people has advantages, and this is you can see it everywhere. So if I like me as a director, a documentarian, if I go in other places with my cameraman, I am not seen as the director. I seen as like still the cute
PA.
girl, black girl that is trying to do something, but the legacy
Intern.
of the documentary, the credits of the
Yeah.
documentary, they see it on the white person, not on me. And this is like one of the hundreds example that I can say.
I
And
I would say for me it's like talking to a fish about water. It's just everywhere. So it's very sometimes difficult to explain what's just there. It's like, oh, you live in water, okay? Like, no, but it's amazing. Water gives you an advantage. So I think that sometimes it's quite difficult to explain the nuances, and I understand why you'd hesitate to just carte blanche say something. But I do think it's an invisible untouchable sometimes advantage in that person's eyes, because it's just a taken. So how
yes,
can you tell somebody something that is just there all the time, but for you you see it come now and then, so you recognize that it's not
yeah,
always there. Like, for example, I imagine that you might have some privilege when you go to Eritrea and you go to the high street and somebody's like, oh, she's definitely not from here, probably got a bit of extra cash, doesn't speak the
yeah,
lingo. All these assumptions based on your clothes, based on the fact you have maybe a little accent, a different hairstyle. So that's why I think it's interesting to be an outsider everywhere, because you do always recognize that there's some things that people take for granted and they're not a given for other people. But yeah, that's what I think about the privilege. If I can just put it as it's sometimes so invisible and sometimes
yeah,
really in your face, but it really depends on which lens you have on. And you can date somebody who's white, for example, and you can mention, it's happened to me before, and I mentioned something, and it's like, oh, you're being paranoid. Come on, really?
yeah.
You think that
Oh,
was
I heard
racist?
that.
Oh, that happened to me yesterday as well. Oh, come on. And you're like, oh. But then you speak to somebody else, like, yep, you didn't even have to start the story. I knew where it was going.
Yeah,
You know? So those two experiences are
yeah,
so different. But
yeah,
I really
yeah.
appreciate sharing that with you.
Thank you. And another thing that remind me Letizia before was that lot of Eritrean, like black people in general, interiorize the racist and the propaganda I told you before of Italian, the myth of Italian good people. It worked also on them, because a lot of black people, not now, maybe the new generation is not passing the same, they don't have the same thing, but before, a lot of black people recognize Italian races just once they went abroad. So
Oh,
when they arrive
yes.
in London,
Yeah,
in Germany, or in the US,
yes,
they think, oh, so what was happening
absolutely.
in Italy was wrong.
Absolutely.
And that
Absolutely. I get you. I mean, you really make me think of, for example, some footballers when they throw bananas onto the court, the racists and chanting Monty chunks. But if you haven't been around that, you might not know it's racist. You might just think, oh, that's a bit odd. I didn't like it.
mm,
Something is off about it, but you don't know the context that they had pictures of apes and they would say that was a
mm,
black person. And this
mm,
is historical, embedded over
yeah,
centuries. And still
yeah,
today, people
yeah,
have that mentality and it comes out in that way. So you wouldn't know it, but then when you study the history, and of course African Americans are the early forerunners of kind of getting
mm,
information about racism and the source of racism. But yeah, so you just made me, that's why I was like nodding when you talk. It's like, yep, 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 exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So yeah, a lot of and that's why we started just now to talk about racism in Italy, because before, like, a lot of young guy, like 12 years, 13 years old, like with their football bag, were stopped by police and searched, and they were at that age they thought that was normal, like
Yeah,
black young
completely
people that thought
institutional.
that it was, yeah, it's normal. Now they are searching, they are make some question, ask some question, and then they leave us and we go to the football meeting. And then when they grew up and they went to other places, they understood that it wasn't normal what they faced, and that was racist.
I think it makes me think that the difference between the generations, when you talk about your situation specifically, I think that the first generation seems to have to assimilate, like the rule is just become one of. So you have a choice. Either you clump together, like maybe the Eritrean community
Mm,
did, and try and create a sense of place and protect yourself and use that network to survive something that's alien to you, or
mhm.
you let go of all your heritage, your language, everything, and just
Yeah.
find a way to fit in. But both are unhealthy, I think. Personally, any extreme is not good. So the balance probably is finding your way to see some positivity in the culture you're living in, whilst grappling with some sense of identity. Because I think it's very difficult to live in a place where you feel totally unloved and unwanted. I mean, what's the point of that? It's
Mhm.
it can't be healthy. But so you have to find a way to have a discourse with the local community and break open the doors and say we're more alike than we are different. Hello, and yes, our difference can be beautiful and can be
Mhm.
celebrated, and it's not something that should be stripped away to be part of your community. And
Mhm.
that comes back to narcissistic idea that you have to be one of me to be
Mhm.
part of me. It's
Mhm.
it's very aggressive.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that the UK went through that stage also in the 80s, and then there was a whole thing about being black and proud and also having Jamaican heritage. And now you see hip hop artists, white and black, using Jamaican patois. It's just become a mix of Cockney,
Mhm.
patois, Nigerian kind of slang in the youth, like 14, 15-year-olds. It's just how they are. And that's an interesting development, I think,
Yeah.
when it's reflected in the music, because that's where the stories are told.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Here we are still. We. they no, in Italy
We.
in Italy they see they support the struggle of Afro-Americans, so the Black Lives Matter and stuff. But when it comes for us or for immigrants, new immigrants, it's like, yeah, they can die in the city, I don't care. So it's like, I think also because US in general, it's people in the US are very great with the marketing, with
The PR and
sending,
yes,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So we have this need I mean, I support Black Lives Matter and I understand, but here how they see Black Americans, it's not the same as they see Black people in general.
But that's something we were talking about last time as well. That being outside of that space allows you to be seen differently. There's kind of this concept of our immigrants or our blacks and others, and there's a
Yeah.
different lens with which those two are viewed. It's horrible, but it is true. I'd like you to promote yourself a little bit more, what you've got coming up, how people can find you, a little bit about, yeah, you've got your poster back there of your film. So share with us so people can find you and follow your work.
Yeah, I'm not very good in the social, so it's social media. But I have a Instagram with my name, so Ariam Tekle, and there are some information of the past screenings of Appuntamento Marinai, my documentary, and when there will be others, I will post it on it, and also we have me and Manuel the page of Black Coffee, always on Instagram. And now, today, the 3rd of September, we are doing a podcast live streaming. Yeah, to announce the starting of the second season of the podcast. So yeah, and yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to add before we finish?
I think that I noticed in this year, no, in these last 2-3 years, it's that it's true that we are more we are trying to be represented in the media, in the journalism, in a lot of sphere, in a lot of field. But at the same time, I'm noticing that a lot of Black people that have more space than others. Even if they are doing a good job, like for what I can say, but at the same time, they are not saying that they are privileged too, because they are coming from a particular economical situation that allow them to be there, to do that studies, to do that path. And not saying that, I think it's dangerous because all the social media are like making us more depressive, more and also, and like I know that because a lot of my friends, Black friends, did a lot of hard work, and they had a sort of career, a good career, but also because they had the tools to achieve that career. And I did the same, but I didn't have the tools, and now I'm trying by myself, and I'm doing little jobs, I'm babysitting and stuff like that. But I know that if I didn't have this awareness, I, I maybe feel like a failure or something like that, because on the social media I see Black people doing great job, and so I think that these people that are like musicians, art creatives, or influencer, or writers should be honest and say, yeah, if I did this, it thanks for my parents because they are in a advantage situation and they let me doing this path. And because, and also they are not the majority, it's a minority in the minority. So it's not I don't want to be judgmental, like they are doing a great job, I support them, but they need to say that, because otherwise it's dangerous. It like psychological, it's
Is it kind of like the illusion of inclusion? Is it kind of the illusion of inclusion
exactly,
if you don't
yeah.
give the full story? Thanks for sharing that. So, are you ready for your last question in
Yeah,
Italian, please?
for an Italian black girl.
Yeah, for a young black girl who maybe comes across this video, what's your message?
Allora, cara ragazza nera in Italia, quello che ti posso suggerire è di non fermarti mai nella ricerca delle tue origini, di studiare non solo i libri di scuola, ma di fare ricerca. Le informazioni ci sono là fuori, basta essere determinati e con voglia di scoprire e continuare il proprio percorso.
Um, well, I mean, that's it, really. I think, yeah, as I said, thank you very much.
Thank you to you for including me on your great work, in your great project. I really appreciate it, and I feel honored to be part of it.
Please like and subscribe. Shadow Choose Films.